Welcome to Green Templeton College in Oxford. We've just been thinking about the Christian in the workplace. And one of the things that immediately interests us after hearing this kind of talk is, what do I now do about it? How do I break the nervousness barrier when talking to my colleagues and friends at work about the Christian message? And for that reason, I wish to introduce you to a friend of mine, Richard Borgonon, who's an international insurance executive and has worked for many years in the workplace where all of us are working. But Richard has experienced a change, and I'd like him to tell us about something that he has written, because he's not only a businessman but an author. Richard, tell us, what were you like before you wrote the word one-to-one?
Well, John, I got converted when I was 15, and I didn't have this until I was 51. And I certainly believed in sharing my faith, but I look back now and, I was a bit like the Tesla that just made it back to the charging station when I got back to church once a week. And I was going, woof, I've survived another week. Please pull up the drawbridge behind me, shut that world out. Now, where's the spiritual mains? I need to be plugged back into the spiritual mains. I've come for some great teaching and for some worship, but my expectation is that by the time we finish this service, I'm going to disconnect and I will go into spiritual drain mode as I leave the church. Now, it's not that I wasn't trying to share my faith, and I certainly was having intellectually interesting conversations with my friends. I was that guy that was known as a Christian, so you would talk to me about Christianity. But I look back now and I think I was going to bed at night and doing this. Well done, Richard. You've managed to mention Jesus today. And the reality, most intellectually interesting conversations blow off in the intellectually interesting wind. Very occasionally, I'd have a book I would be able to hand someone, perhaps one of your books. I might be able to invite them to come and hear someone like you speak. But generally, I was that interesting person, and then they went off and did the football or work or whatever else. What I didn't have, was the ability to share my faith. I didn't know my Bible well enough to be able to do so. So what this is...
Well, tell us.
This is the Gospel of John in an accessible and acceptable format. All it does, in a booklet which you'll see, and there's 11 of these for the whole of the book of John, every page you can see, John, is coloured denim blue, because you can be a prince or a prisoner and you feel comfortable in your jeans. And I discovered that my friends in a biblically ignorant age had often thought to themselves, well, one day I'll have a look at that book. It's sold more copies than any other in the history of printing, and I bet it's got some good stuff in it. But I had no means, because I didn't know how to share my Bible, as to how to sit down and share that. This does that in that format. It takes just a few verses at a time. It raises the questions that each verse raises, and it gives the answer. Because in today's Google society, men in the city in particular, women better than men, but men in particular do not wish to be put on the spot and shown that they don't know something. So I'm giving the answers to the questions that the passage raises, and I'm expecting then a discussion of some kind. What it does is, at the end of every episode, and it is like a box set, there's 38 episodes for the 21 chapters at John, it puts at the end the passage we would have had in church. Why is it at the end? The reason is that most people in a biblically ignorant age would have glazed over by line 2 or 3. They wouldn't have understood this. So I've broken it down line by line, verse by verse, with the questions and the answers. And they adore it. You see, that is socially accessible.
Now, you've been using it yourself, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And you've been travelling around the world and are greatly encouraged, as far as I can see, at the take-up. Why do you think that has happened?
We are a biblically ignorant age, John, and people do not have the answers to life. So there's two major things that I hear everywhere I go. One, I'm not at peace. Now, it may well be that my friends are very successful. It may be they've tried marriage many times. I'm not at peace. The job, the money, the toys in the garage, they've not brought me what I thought. Or of course it could be the reverse. My health is rubbish. I never met my life partner. I'm not at peace. Increasingly, John, over the last 3 years, I don't feel secure. And number one of the I don't feel secure list is the fidelity of relationships. Even in marriage, I don't feel secure. It could well be ISIS, I don't feel secure. In Britain, it could be Brexit, I don't feel secure. In every case, what they're basically saying is I haven't got the answers to life. But in a biblically ignorant age, they're not thinking about Christ and they're not going to church or thinking about going to church. But they do think that the Word, the Bible, has probably got some good stuff in it. It's like the maker's instructions in the glove box of your car. But I've never got round to reading it, unless I'm forced to in a crisis, like a puncture. Well, actually, when you get this out and show them, do you know what they say? And do you know what they've said to me for 11 years I've had this? To a man that I have shared this with, why has no one ever shown me this before? Now, I think that's damning of us as Christians. But the truth, for most Christians, we don't know how to use our Bibles to be able to share. Now, I've got the how. And the how is a simple conversation where literally the guts of the conversation, the skeleton of the conversation is all set out for me. And it is totally transparent to my non-Christian friend. They've got a copy, I've got a copy, they're exactly the same, and they can see that what I'm saying is all written down.
I can imagine that some of the friends you share this with who are Christians are fairly nervous about engagement.
Yeah.
In your experience, has this helped him get through that nervous barrier and engage?
It's all about the first coffee. Once you sit down for that first coffee and you start to share the word, you realize it's not about you. You see, my friends don't remember what I say. They're fixated by what the word says. The word doesn't go out empty. And by the time you get to the end of your first coffee, the norm is your friend has said, look, no one's ever shown me this before. Would you please meet me again? I'll be up for another coffee to see what happens.
So
next.
there's no difficulty in continuing the conversation in most of the cases you've experienced.
Well, I've been at it 11 years, John. I've only had, first of all, we now know that 1 in 5 of the people you ask will say yes to sitting down to have a cup of coffee, to have a look at this. And 1 in 5 is on the basis that that's global. Okay? By the way, in every single case, it'll be because God's at work. You don't build the church, God builds the church. So something's happened in their lives that has brought them to the point where they think, you know what, that's probably not a bad idea. Then, once they've looked at the first study, in 11 years, I've only had 10 people who didn't want to meet again to have a look at what happened next. 10.
And in your experience, have some of these people become believers through doing this?
Oh, yeah. The dropout rate after the first study, in 11 years, I've only had 7 people who haven't wanted to go through the whole of the book of John. And by the time you've got through the story of Lazarus, halfway through the book of John, I tell you, you're then ready for a Christianity Explored or Alpha or Explained course of some description. So this sits foundationally below the courses that we've historically got, or it's a fantastic mentoring tool. Once you've done a course, it may well be in a biblically ignorant age that you didn't understand enough yet to commit your life. Well, what a wonderful thing to be mentored, to actually then take the Gospel of John and be sat down with a Christian friend and be meeting them probably 20 times to get through 21 chapters. I wouldn't be surprised at that. 20 hours. Well, you're going to actually get to see Christ in
Now,
his
how can the
entirety.
people watching us today get involved? How do they start? Have you got a website? Or?
Yes. First of all, the books are sold by 10ofthose.com, who are supplying this conference. The second thing is a fantastic website. It's www.theword121.com. So theword121.com. It's loaded with films and how to get the notes and helpful background for you. So a very easy way to access it.
Well,
and
Richard,
it's gone completely global.
thank you very much.